Welcome to Voice for the Voiceless, Speak Your Truth. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I am recording, the Maiwan-Bolik clans of the Bunurong tribes, sovereign and first people of the Karam area. This podcast, we're talking about home birth, and I have two guests with me today. I have Bridget and Julie, who are both mums living in Melbourne. Julie is French and has given birth in the Netherlands, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the culture around birth and home birth in the Netherlands. And Bridget had a home birth in Australia, so we'll be talking a little bit about their stories. To start with, I don't know who wants to start, but do you want to start with your story of your home birth?
Hi, this is Bridget.
Hi, Bridget.
Hello. So my child is now almost 3, so I gave birth 3 years ago, almost to the day. I had always plans to have a home birth. It was something that his father suggested, and we found the perfect midwife for us. During the pregnancy, it was fairly nondescript. It was lovely, actually. But I do have a congenital disease, which meant that officially I was a high-risk pregnancy. So I was seeing the hospital, public hospital, and at one point a private obstetrician just to keep on track of everything. I was highly discouraged from having a home birth because, oh my goodness, who would have a home birth if if you're ill, because it's such a medical risk, obviously. But I ignored them. I was confident in my body. I knew that my baby and myself were both healthy and that we could do this, and we did it beautifully. His water broke at 3 a.m. It was a high break, so it wasn't a big explosion as some people's are. Mm-hmm. I thought that I had peed my pants. And I went back to bed. A few hours later, I got up and continued to pee my pants as I was walking around. I was completely convinced that I had lost control of my urinary tract. I was in complete denial because I was hoping to get a little while longer. It was 38 weeks on the day. It was 3 hours after 38 weeks that this started happening. So I wasn't in the house that I was planning on birthing at the time. So we called up my sister, and my sister came and picked me up to take me back to her house where everything was not set up because I was convinced I was not giving birth yet. The cot that I'd had was full of all the washing that I hadn't folded yet, and I didn't even know what the TENS machine looked like because I had never unpacked it yet. I just went straight to the bed. I'd been practicing hypnobirthing, so as soon as I stopped being in denial, I started going into trance essentially. Yep. And became fairly... My sister said on the drive home to her house that I acted like I was drunk because she would ask me a question and it would take me a few minutes to respond, and I would just respond like going, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." So when I got home, I just went to the bed and I just spent essentially the rest of the time in the bedroom. So I was in the bedroom for about 18 hours, I would say. I was just on the bed the whole time, unless I had to go to the toilet. My sister did everything for me. It was wonderful. I also had 2 birthing partners, which was my stepmother and one of my best friends. And they came fairly later in the day and were both also wonderful. So they had been practicing my hypnobirthing with me previously, so they had all the scripts that I wanted to have read to me. My stepmother just kept me grounded and in hypnosis, and my birthing partner, my best friend, was just saying how well I was doing and how proud of me she was and blah, blah, blah. My sister set up the birthing pool and she got me food and water. They started setting up my birthing pool. My midwife came around at some point. I have such a... everything is a dream at that point. Yeah. But she came around at some point and did very little, which is just what we wanted. I had no internal examinations, which was as I wanted. There was no light at this point. I just had a few candles going. So she had a spotlight, which she used just to visually check every now and again that everything looked all right down there. After a few hours, I got into the birthing pool, and then I was in the birthing pool for a little while as well. And my sensations started to change. I started feeling very pushy, and then I started to feel what I knew must be the crowning, and I reached between my legs, and yes, I could feel my baby's head, which was amazing, and just happened at the right time to keep on going. So we started working together, started pushing more, started making much louder noises, which felt exactly right at the time. And his head was born after my midwife did tell me that I needed to hold him in place, and I couldn't do that. So I just pushed a little harder than I should have, and that's when I tore. So obviously my body wasn't quite ready. That's why he was going in and out, was because my body wasn't quite ready to push him all the way out yet. So that was the one thing that I think wasn't completely perfect, but it was a small tear. It didn't need any stitching. But after his head was born, I paused for a moment to wait for him to change his shape, because the head gets born one way and the baby turns slightly to be born the rest of the way. And I got to feel him turn, which was amazing, just an amazing experience. And once he was turned, then I knew that he was ready, and I pushed and he came out. And then came the placenta, which was not as enjoyable. That was tricky.
People usually forget about that part, don't
they?
they?
Yeah, the placenta was hard. The birth was lovely, and then the placenta was a bit harder.
So what was hard about the placenta?
Well, my son had a tongue tie, so the best thing for your body is obviously as soon as the baby latches, that means that your body knows to start releasing the placenta, which didn't happen properly for us. He didn't start breastfeeding, so that didn't quite happen, which I suppose slowed down the process a lot. I was also quite tired, as most people are at that stage. So it just took a little while longer than I thought it would. I ended up having to... I was encouraged to stand. I could not stand by myself, so I was supported by both of my midwives as I stood there going, ugh. So that was the least delicate part of the day. But yeah, it was beautiful. It came out. By then, obviously, his cord was completely empty. It was nice and white. And someone chopped it. We don't actually know who cut his cord. Two people remember. Two people think that it was them.
There you go.
Like, I did it. Which is, I mean, it's nice. It's better to have two people than no one. The only other thing I would say about my birth was that all my family was there in the end, because I'd let everyone know. I wanted everyone invited to the house. And my father at one point was in the other room and said, "Oh, that's a noise your mother made just before she gave birth." And about 3 seconds later, my stepmother came through the door and said, "Oh, he's here." So it was really nice for me to have that experience of knowing that I sound exactly like my mother. Which is not an experience people get in a hospital.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's my story.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. What about you, Julie? How did your birth go?
Yeah, hi. My birth was a bit different. So I started planning for a birth in a birth hotel that we have in Amsterdam. So there's this amazing, looks like a 5-star hotel where you go and you can give birth, and you have doula you can hire, and it's pretty much well set up. And I didn't think of having a home birth because I thought it would be too messy, basically. At first, I didn't know much about home birth, and I just knew I didn't want a hospital birth because I spent my childhood in hospital, and I was a bit scared of hospital and doctors. So that started like that, and I hired a doula, and we talked through things, and at the end of the day, she was like, "You sure you will want to, when you're in labor, after being like, after hours of labor, you will want to go down your 2 flights of stairs, walk, because we didn't have a car, and I wouldn't take my bike at this stage to go to the birth hotel and to give birth there, when it's actually the same thing than being at home, because you don't have medical anywhere assistance or anything like that."
Yep.
So I thought about it, and then we talked it through with our midwife that we had at this time, and we decided to plan for home birth. It would be simpler, so that's how we started with home birth. I always wanted to have a water birth, so with a pool. So we had the pool set up by 37 weeks at home. We were in a nice room with all the nice light, and everything was ready. And we had a doula, we had a birth photographer. I was, really organized. And when my water broke, I was just 38 and a half weeks about. So it was also like pretty pretty dramatic. It was like liters and liters of water.
Wow.
That happened at night. I was watching TV because I was a bit insomniac at the end of my pregnancy, and my husband Toby was like sleeping, and I had to call him. I thought also that I pee myself or something. And then I realized that no, I couldn't pee that much. that was not possible. So then I called him. I was like, "Oh, come down, my water broke or something." And he arrived downstairs, and he just saw me, standing with like water dripping out of me. And I was like, get a bowl," because I'm French and I didn't say bucket. So he went into the kitchen and came back with this tiny breakfast bowl. And he was like, the only thing I could see was him under me trying to aim to put the water in. That was pretty funny. So that was the funny part of the labor.
Yeah.
And then after that, the time we clean up the mess, and then we were a bit excited, like my water broke, and then when the excitation came down, I was like, okay, let's try to relax. And that's where my contraction started. I was like, oh, great. So then my contraction started, and I had bad back labor pain, so I couldn't really rest. Like every time, I would rest 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then that would wake me up. So I didn't really get a rest that night at all. And the following, the morning and the day, my contractions were always a bit like 7 minutes. Then they were 15 minutes, then they were 5 minutes, then they were, it's just they were a bit all over the place, so I didn't really know what was going on, and I couldn't rest because, after a while I was just more tired to try to rest between contractions and not trying at all. So I just, a bit gave up and tried to relax. I baked muffins because I read that people do that. But okay, I'm gonna bake muffins. So I baked muffins. I just, and my doula was there, helped me a bit. Toby had a rest, and then the midwife came and checked on me, and she was like, "Yeah, you still have a while to go." So I was okay. So fast forward to the second night, and at 3 a.m. about, I think, my contraction came back, and I was getting very much more intense and much more like I was getting tired as well. I haven't slept for since the 2 mornings ago, at this stage. So I was getting very tired, and contractions were getting more intense. I tried the TENS machine that didn't do anything for me. I really didn't like it. So I was trying to hold on, and I didn't know where I was at. I didn't know how long that would be. How much longer it would be, and how much longer I could deal without sleeping. That was the main worry. Yep. And the following morning, my midwife was getting a bit, not worried, but I think they were getting a bit worried about more the lack of sleep than anything else. That, I was getting exhausted, and I asked her, I needed to know how far along I was, and I think there was a bit of a mistake. So she checked me for the first time, and I was like 2 centimeters. And I was like, there's like women at my yoga class that are 2 centimeters. That's not possible. I cannot be just 2 centimeters, I really felt like, that really took off all my spirit. And I was like, oh, that's not gonna I can't do another week like that. That's not possible.
Sounds a bit disappointing.
I think that kind of took off all my power